to say about Google's electoral footprint. Take a look.
You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale.
If I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Tech watcher Oz Sultan is with us from Sultan Interactive. Oz, first of all, I just want to let our viewers know this guy from Psychology Today is not a Trump supporter. He was asked about that, and he said on the opposite. So one must assume he's an anti-Trump guy, but he's willing to say this. Why didn't this get more publicity? 15 million votes could be influenced by the work of these anti-Trump people in Google.
Well, I think you have to think back to what happened in 2016. This is a bit of an embarrassment for them, and I think this, all of the supporters of Hillary, Alphabet was the largest supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign. The campaign itself spent $100 million on advertising on all of these platforms that wasn't successful. So, I don't think the media really wants to echo those failures once again. I was on the Trump 16 campaign working on big data and social media, a little bit with Parscale, not much, but more with the War Room.
Parscale.
Yeah, with Brad Parscale, but more with the War Room team. And, I can tell you that campaign ran effectively, was able to push targeting out, was able to push ads out, was able to get the messaging out on specific issues that the Hillary campaign wasn't able to do. But the challenge that we have kind of going into 2020, I think, is threefold. If you look at what Twitter is doing right now, Twitter is actually taking ad dollars from China to push ads against the Hong Kong protesters, okay? So you have to ask, where is the view on democracy from these technology companies? But the bigger problem I think we have is layered. Alphabet, which controls the search apparatus for this, and Google, which has access to, half of the smartphones in America, as well as the fact that you've got, embedded search on a variety of different devices out there, is presenting you with a skewed perspective of information. And what was testified in Congress, and I think this is a big point that all of the viewers need to be aware of, is that the testimony was that 2.6 to 10.5 million voters could have been influenced by this type of targeting or the Go Vote notifications on Facebook, and this was in 2016.
And yet, Oz, on the cover, I remember the cover of Forbes magazine shortly after the election was, they had a picture of Jared Kushner and his work with social media, which was working with people like you that targeted particular areas of the country, particular classifications, groups, and so forth, very successfully. So the Trump team used social media very effectively, but they were open about it after the election. I'm wondering if the social media companies that were used by the Trump campaign are now alerted to the fact that the Trump campaign may want to do it for their reelection bid and try to stop them somehow from using their vehicles.
Well, look at what's been happening on Twitter. You had Parscale basically saying that they're going to pull back on Twitter advertising dollars after they blocked Mitch McConnell's team account for just saying that there's people outside of my house saying they want to kill me. Okay. There's a lot of questions of free speech on these platforms. There's a lot of questions as to the validity of the information that the American consumer is getting. But the bigger issue at hand here is that if Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even some of the chat applications, which are, WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, were to decide that they wanted to throw their support behind a candidate, they could influence up to 15 million votes.
It's extraordinary. Oz Sultan, thank you very much. And by the way, Stuart Varney himself was the one who spotted this testimony, which was missed by most of the media. It was an extraordinary admission on the part of somebody who's not a Trump fan at all. 15 million votes is quite a lot in our democracy. Thank you, Oz. Good to see you. Appreciate it. By the way, Google, Amazon, and Facebook are in